Welcome to Chris and Jen in the Morning,
where it's always morning somewhere.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Jen. And we are so excited to be here together in the same place today. Wish we could always be in the same place.
But this makes it extra special.
I'll take what I can get. And you see, I'm sporting my new merch.
I do see that.
I brought it all the way from New York City.
I sure did.
Because last time I was there, it didn't make it quite in time. But guys, doesn't this look so good?
Great hat.
I love it.
Comes in many colors.
You know, I love a good hat.
But why did you get the hat?
Well, it served me super well at Pride Kelso this past weekend. Let me tell you what a fantastic time that was. It was our very first booth experience.
Sure was.
Thank you for coming all the way to Dallas for that event. Amazing.
I'm so glad I did. I grew up in this area, so I really wanted to be here. I wanted to see how the community responded, and it did not disappoint.
Did not disappoint.
It was so much fun.
It was amazing. Just so many of you we got to meet while we were there, and just how welcoming and positive and kind and genuinely just the amazing parts of humanity, which, have been a little tougher to find. It feels like these past few months, I just felt like we were immersed in it. That was just such an amazing experience, which takes me to my gratitude moment. I just want to take a minute and say how incredibly grateful I am for April and Shayna Drayson. They have the events company, the Drayson, are the founders of this first ever Pride Kelso event. They have poured their whole lives into this event, their business into this event, all of their passion. It's the first time they've ever thrown a festival, and you would not have known. I mean, it was just so well put together, so well orchestrated. One of the safest places that you could have been. It was amazing. But I have to say, it is April and Shayna and others like them who put humanity and community before self because they know it's the right thing to do, that just remind me that this is a beautiful world that we live in. And
it is.
When you're in the moment of counting up all of those things that are tough and that aren't going well and just all of this tension between people, it's hard to remember that there is just so much good and humanity out there. And so, April and Shayna, if you are listening, I just want to say I am so incredibly grateful for you. You are such an inspiration to me as a human about what it means to live in kindness. Just thank you for everything that you've done, because we know that it wasn't easy and it didn't come without cost. And we're just so incredibly grateful. But was so meaningful. You made a huge difference here in our lives and in the world. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, at the event, there were so many people who came up to our booth, and we just were asking, questions, getting to know people and what brought them out. And so many people were just allies of the community and felt compelled to show up for the community, for the event, for the organizers. It was just so well done. It was a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky.
Not a cloud.
Not one.
Not even one little shade providing cloud.
No.
It was beautiful though.
It was beautiful. We had a wonderful time, and just a huge shout out to everyone who did show up and represented the community. Because, like I've said before, as someone who grew up in this community, knowing that I was a gay person, not having known anyone and not having known any supporters, to see how many people showed up who were supporters, it just was inspiring to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Is this your gratitude moment as well?
No, I actually have another gratitude moment. Yes, I am grateful to April and Shayna for such an amazing event, but I also have to give you, Ace and Alex, a huge shout out and gratitude moment, because the last couple of weeks have been hard for, things going on in mine and Frank's lives. And you and Ace have stepped in and taken care of this. And it is so greatly appreciated. And then you are hosting me, and it has just been wonderful. We were up until 1 a.m. playing Nerds last night. As a newbie, I was not great,
No, you did really good.
But I started making progress there towards
you did
the
really
end.
Good. I was the champion.
You sure were. But I'm just so grateful for you opening your house, for keeping this production up and running while I could not give it probably more than 30% of my attention.
Well, same goes. You've done the same for me with the stuff that I've had going on. And certainly, I was telling you just earlier this week, I don't know time, whatever, but you many times have been just that safe place for me that I can relax and rest and set aside what's going on. And it's part of what I appreciate so much about our friendship.
That's why we make such a great team,
it really
the three of us.
It really is.
So this kind of leads us to our topic today. So you and I were having this conversation, and I found it interesting because my interpretation of it was one way, and then you like clarified it. Mm-hmm. So we want to talk a little bit today about being comfortable with the space that you take up. I was interpreting this more about like how you take up space, like how you get it. And you very succinctly and in a very well worded way kind of explained what you meant by it. So do you want to do the setup there?
Pressure is on. I will not sound nearly as eloquent as I did the first time or as the intern ChatGPT did at it. But this is really about being comfortable in the skin that you're in, being comfortable with the space that you take up instead of walking around apologizing for the space that you take up or feeling like you have to shrink or make yourself smaller. And it's something that I personally have been working on. I often find that I am shrinking, trying to make myself smaller, which is, funny if you think about it, because I'm not a wilting flower.
Not
anything,
at all how I would describe you.
But, I also am not necessarily comfortable with the space that I take up or who I am as a person, and always just worried about how my being me is going to make other people feel, and not really thinking about how I feel. Right. And so this is something I've really been working on. Been reading this boundaries book. Mostly you read it, and I'm still on chapter 6 out of what feels like 700. But that book ties into this concept as well of, not just like folding your boundaries in to make everybody else comfortable, but asking like, what is it that I need to show up in this world and be comfortable, and that's valid.
Right. It's not about demanding space. It's more about settling into what you already have and not feeling bad about that. And I think where I found it interesting as we started talking more about it and looking into it, kind of like this goes in all aspects of your life. Like you were saying, we were reading that boundaries book, and the thing that I liked about the book is all the different aspects that the author walks you through. So it's like in your personal life, in your relationships, in your professional life, like in all the different aspects that you may be walking through life in. And I just thought, wow, I don't think I had ever really thought about that. Like based on like whatever situation you may be in, you may not feel comfortable taking up that space. So I'm happy that we're going to time and energy into that today.
So we think about, what does it mean to take up space just in your life in general? It's accepting that your goals, your personality, and your presence matter, that you have a voice and your voice is valid. And it's not thinking others and their needs, priorities, feelings are what matter most. So not squelching what you think because you're afraid to make somebody else uncomfortable. But I would say I don't feel like those are quite the right words, because, we still have to operate with a kindness, right? Like It's really important to have empathy and to think about, how we interact with others and how our words have meaning and impact. But also it doesn't mean that, you have to be silent or become small about things that are important because you don't want your presence or your strongly held beliefs are making other people uncomfortable. And you can do that in a way that's not abrasive. But in your relationships, it's about trusting that your needs and feelings belong. And in everyday spaces, speaking, showing up, the way you dress, how you move about the physical space that you're in, creating without constant self editing, constantly like worrying, I really feel good about this, but what is everybody else going to think about it?
Right.
And just going, okay, well, the fact that I feel good about it, that's valid.
Yeah. I find it interesting, especially when you get to the conversation around like the physical space that you take up, because like I know that I don't always feel comfortable in my own skin. And so I do, not only does that impact the way that I show up to others, it's also how I'm showing up for myself. And, you know, we talked in a previous episode about like that self-talk and really managing those voices in your head and how you move to that positive headspace. And I think that's a really important part of this. But knowing that when we say physical space, we actually mean the physical space you are taking up in a room, at a table, like whatever it may be.
It's a little different than kind of what we've gotten from a corporate standpoint, which is come into a room, sit at the table, take up the space, don't just be the wallflower. Those are really important things, I believe, not feeling like you have to shrink just while you exist.
Right.
So research obviously has been done on this, and we're going to bring in the neuroscience aspect.
To say, I'm guessing we have neuroscience to back this up.
So I got to read this to make sure I pronounce it right. Yep. The anterior cingulate cortex, or you may know it as the ACC.
Yes, the ACC. I didn't know it until you said that.
Yeah, not like the architectural control committee of your HOA, ACC, but the anterior cingulate cortex is the portion of the brain that processes social exclusion in the same way that it processes physical pain. So this need to be accepted, this desire to be accepted, or this feeling of not being accepted or fear of not being accepted is experienced in your brain in the same way that physical pain is experienced. So it's very real, like thing that's happening inside of your brain that makes you shrink or change who you are in order to try and be accepted by others.
Yeah.
And I think what's really important about understanding that is it helps you kind of meet yourself where you're at and say, okay, this is like a normal reaction. Mm-hmm. There is a scientific explanation for why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I'm not good enough because I can't figure out how to be comfortable in the space that I'm in. That's a normal thing that people struggle with. If you don't, like, amazing. We would love for you to share your tips. So drop us some comments about like what you do or what your tips and tricks are. But if it is something that you struggle with, it's normal. And so meet yourself where you're at and saying, oh yeah, like I'm just like everybody else and this is normal. But there's also things that we can do about it, right?
I do find it interesting that that part of the brain is what, like, social impact isn't necessarily a physical harm, right? Like it's definitely emotional. It's all, but I'm just thinking like as a child, I remember my mom telling me, don't touch the burner. I just turned it off. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, why not? So I touched it and I immediately.
You did. Of course you did. Such a rule breaker.
Yes. But like, it is remembering what that pain was that now, like, I don't touch a hot burner. Mm-hmm. And so that that is no longer like a conscious thought that I have. It is now I just know not to do it. And so if you go through life and you have experienced these types of negative experiences, you likely have put together some defense mechanisms to protect yourself.
Yeah. Well, and when you think about it, so pain, like how we experience pain is really a signal from the brain going through the nerves, sending signals in the body, which, serves different purposes. Like when you experience that pain, you stop touching that thing because, you don't want to melt your finger off, right? And so it makes sense that emotional things can be processed in the same way because it's your brain sending signals to your nerves. But there are absolutely studies done that emotional and mental impacts can cause real physical pain in the body, can present as real physical pain too. So it makes sense that same portion of your brain that processes that physical pain is what processes this. It's a very real thing, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
And I think what's interesting about this is we were like putting all of this together was that I kind of feel like the conversation has to start in the place of, what this actually looks like and feels like to be uncomfortable, instead of rather like moving into this place of like understanding it and trying to manage it. Because I think if we understand like how this may actually manifest in real life, we can then better understand what's happening and put things into place. So I think one that I read that super is real for me is like apologizing for something that is beyond your control. Are you an over apologizer?
Do you find yourself saying I'm sorry all the time?
Right.
Whether it is I'm sorry because you are afraid somebody's going to be mad at you, or I'm sorry because it's just like built into the nature of what you say.
Right.
But, if you find yourself just constantly saying I'm sorry, then that might be a sign that you may not be very comfortable in your skin. Also, if you do find yourself in a position where you feel guilty or like you need to say you're sorry for something that happened that you didn't really do, but you're afraid somebody's going to be upset about it.
Right.
And that is something that I have really struggled with, that really resonates with me. It's like I almost feel somebody's upset and I feel guilty. And then I'm like, but I didn't actually do anything wrong.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. I had nothing to do with it, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like that, it's that stress reaction.
Have you ever minimized your achievements to make someone feel more comfortable?
Yeah.
Chris, have you ever done that?
Sure have.
I sure have too, all the time. Editing yourself to avoid judgment from others, whether it's your job, your hobby, where you live or come from, who you are as a person, feeling like you can't share or you don't want to share. Not because it's private to you, but because you feel like other people are not going to be comfortable with that.
Not comfortable or going to judge you, like in a way that's not like that. Is it their space to judge you?
Yeah.
I think that's the other part of this is you may be editing yourself to stop a reaction that you don't want to have to deal with.
Feeling guilty for taking time, attention, or physical space. So when you cry, do you say, I'm sorry? I sure do. Why? Why are you saying you're sorry for crying? Like, feelings are valid and important. Your feelings are real. So why do we feel like we need to apologize for saying, for crying? I know I certainly, even with you, I've cried and said, I'm just so sorry. I didn't mean to cry. And you're like, no, it's like, fine. I'm glad that you feel like you can share those emotions with me.
I do think something interesting about that one, like crying specifically, I think also kind of hits people differently. And so, right, it's a vulnerability. And then also if you're the person, like, how well do you know this person? And like, do I hug them? Do I like pat them on the shoulder? Like, what do I do? Like, it could be a little bit awkward for the other person as well. So I get why in some situations, like, people will apologize because
I'm just saying, feelings are feelings.
Yes.
So why apologize for being human? Like, to me, that demonstrates not having a level of comfort with just existing in the world as your authentic self. Have you ever met with your boss or needed to get a hold of your boss and you start with, I'm sorry, I just need this thing from you. Like, I apologize for needing anything from you, even though that's a completely valid thing to need.
Right.
And you're probably not even mad about it. But I'm sorry for taking up any amount of space on your calendar.
Exactly.
Because you must just be so busy that this time shouldn't belong to me. And like, why do we start from that position?
Right. Something that I just thought of that we don't have on this list is the use of the word just. I sat in on a workshop once where they were just talking about streamlining your language, being more direct and purposeful. Mm-hmm. And they talked about how we've started using the word just to minimize or to shrink, essentially. Yeah. And so now I try to be, I think about it whenever I'm typing, and if the word just pops up, I'm like, is this a needed word here? So you had used it in an example you just said, and I was like, I
just want to take a minute of your time.
Right.
Physically shrinking, hunching over, attempting to make yourself smaller. Yeah. If your posture is like constantly like this, and not because you're like hunched for your phone or your computer, but like just because you're constantly making yourself smaller, that might be a sign that you are not necessarily comfortable with the space that you take up.
As one of my friends puts it, they have the posture of a gargoyle.
Yeah, as I'm now all of a sudden very aware.
Very aware, right?
Very aware.
But I think that's one like where that physical part comes in, because I am a bigger guy. I am not a dainty flower here. And so whenever I am at a table, whether it's for dinner, for work, for whatever, like if it's with a group of people, I do kind of feel bad for the amount of space that
I'm so
being
sorry.
on airplanes recently.
I took up some space at this table when in reality, if you were to like be outside looking in, you're probably not taking up the, all of this space and making everybody else not have space.
Right. Exactly.
And I mean, I think there's a difference between being considerate of others, because that is an important thing to do. It's not like we're suggesting you just go through life and, not be considerate of other people. But I think it's like when you take that to the exclusion of yourself, as if you don't deserve to have the space, that's when emotionally, physically, whatever, that's when that becomes, not really healthy.
Right.
So why does this happen?
I don't know. You tell me.
So I think oftentimes there's like a socialization aspect that comes into it. I know we've talked before about, being brought up as kids where children are to be seen and not heard.
Yep.
But at what point do you become, allowed to be heard?
Well, I think that's also like a conversation that you and I had also about like once you get to a certain age, like when do these stereotypes for boys and girls start to manifest? And
yes, we had a conversation in a parking lot just a few days ago.
Just a couple days ago.
Where jokingly my behavior was being described as aggressive. And I said, but if I was a man, would I be called aggressive? And you said, no, absolutely not. You then said some other funny stuff after that.
I then inserted my foot fully into my mouth.
I even let him drive me home.
I was so upset I had to let him drive me home.
He drove me there too, to be fair. But, just thinking about, I certainly am guilty of this. When I think about females in the workplace and how they show up versus how males show up, it's almost been normalized to me that certain behavior is gender appropriate or gender inappropriate. And I have to check myself and go, wait a second, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And I think that's a point that I think it was Sheryl Sandberg that actually made that point the first time I heard it. I thought, oh man, I'm really guilty of that as well. And just creating that awareness of, whether it's your gender, your culture, your race, your family norms, your religion, like there are all kinds of things that family dynamics that just create this this sort of messaging around socializing you to become smaller or to not take up space. I think if you've been through trauma in your life, that this is something that absolutely comes up that you have to deal with as well. I think, when we talk about socialization and culture, I can't go on without mentioning in May of 2024, so May of last year, the Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker gave a speech at Benedictine College. I think it was like a, what's that called when you're graduation ceremony, commencement, whatever, about women and their role in society. And basically like, you shouldn't even be here at college. You need to be back home in the kitchen having children. I'm sorry, what? At a college graduation speech, right? And then, the LGBTQ community he hated on and, lots of things. But can he help it? It's been spoken over him his whole life.
But I do think it goes to that socialization piece, because I think if you're not aware of those types of things and how they show up in real life, you just go through life.
Yeah.
And it's like this awareness that we have to have. And I think that's part of the reason why we wanted to have this conversation, was because there's an awareness that you have to have in some of your actions and your reactions to start to be able to tweak and change them, both to make yourself a better person, but also so that we can be better for one another.
Yeah, I think we really have to look at our internal beliefs about our worthiness and our value and check that, because oftentimes that is what creates this habit of making ourselves smaller. And so as we talk about like, how do you start to become comfortable in
Yeah.
your own space? One of the things that I really have been working on the past like 5 years, started kind of in the pandemic, really facing this fully, is where I find my self-worth and my value. And this isn't just in negative feedback, but in positive feedback. I have spent, really my life, my adult life, chasing this positive feedback through my career. And like needing that to validate me as a person. Your self-worth and your self-value have to come from within you, whether it's positive or negative. So we talk about, the negative voice inside of ourselves and not listening to negative feedback from other people. But if you are as dependent on other people to provide your positive feedback and beliefs about yourself, or external factors, then like that is every bit as dangerous, because you give away all of your agency and your personal power to somebody else, and they probably don't want that power, let alone don't deserve that power. Like, I don't want that power. I'm going to screw that up if somebody is looking to be their version of self-value and self-worth. But that's something that I think is a learned behavior. It's when you don't learn how to provide that for yourself, and you don't have those good practices of being able to support yourself from within about who you are as a person, then you become really vulnerable to other people's thoughts and opinions. And so you do make yourself smaller or less authentic to your true self, because what they say determines what you think about yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it before. Me growing up knowing that I was gay, which was very negative in the world that I grew up in. I was going to, likely get a disease, get addicted to drugs or alcohol. The messaging was always negative. To find that balance in like who I was, and yet I identify as this person that everyone says this is what that looks like.
Yeah.
And it really took a lot of hard work to understand, no, like just because I'm gay does not automatically mean these things are assigned to me.
No, not at all. And for the record, you're one of the kindest, most stable, well-balanced, most compassionate, reliable individuals I've ever met. Not that you should look to me to believe that about yourself, but it's just a fact.
Right.
Absolutely. These things that we're told that we allow to stick can really start to shape what we believe. Have to think about, do some journaling, which I know we love, but really like
we'd love to talk about it.
Spend some time thinking about, how is it that I value myself? How do I feel about myself? Do I find myself worthy? Like, I know as I was going through therapy and, was asked I hate the inner child. Oh, I just hate the inner child stuff. I hate it so much, which probably tells you something about how I feel about that. I was asked to describe what she looked like. And it wasn't a good description. It wasn't a positive description. Yeah. I think that, to me, saying that out loud and then really thinking about that and creating that, or acknowledging that visual image that I had, helped me really understand, no, like, you have a really terrible version of who you think you are. Let's figure out why that is and start really addressing that. Sometimes you do have to learn to listen to your trusted network of people to give you the words you don't yet have. But like, if I were to rely on you all the time, for instance, to determine whether or not I was worthy, then that really would not be healthy.
Right.
And when I think about like how that gets displayed in romantic relationships. So I am super guilty of asking my husband, do you love me? Even though I know the answer is yes. Like, I'm not really asking him, does he love me? Because I do know it bothers him that I ask him that. I'm not asking, do you love me? Because I don't know if you love me. What I'm saying is, I need you to validate me, because I'm not doing that for myself right now. So I need you to tell me that I'm worthy. I need you to tell me that I'm enough. But those aren't the words I'm using. What I'm saying is, do you love me? And there's like some codependency that starts to happen there, right?
Well, I think there's a difference between looking for validation within yourself, like versus looking that we're in a strong, healthy relationship. We are like, and I know that you all are, but I'm just saying, like,
sometimes you just need to hear it, right?
Correct. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make, is sometimes you want to hear from someone that you love that they love you.
But he does tell me that. So when I'm asking, it's not like, do you even love me? It's like, hi, I need some validation right now. So, maybe that's what I should start saying instead, so I can be more aware of when I'm seeking that.
But I also think this shows up in ways that, to say that you are going to be perfect all the time, we've talked about,
there is no
how many
therapy
sessions do I need to sit in till I'm fixed, or how?
Guys, the answer is like, it's not a number. The fact that you're asking means there's more.
Okay. So I think it's one of those things, though, that there are times whenever you do need those trusted people who do, when you are in a tough time or when you are in, an uphill battle or something, that can help you. And I think it's more reaffirming. Like, I think in a lot of the conversations that you and I have, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I am reminding you that you have this in you, and that maybe in this moment you don't feel like you can tap into it, but you can.
Yeah. But I do think it's important to, like, that framing is really important. So that's one of the ways that you can start to create some awareness around it, is if somebody is telling you something and that's positive and you're going, I don't know if I believe that. Like, that's an opportunity to go take that away and really think about that. And is the person that you're talking to, like, over giving you more credit than you deserve, or are you undervaluing yourself in that situation? We talked several weeks ago about feelings and how feelings are signals. They're not your enemy. I always think of that Finding Nemo line, fish are friends, not food.
That's right.
Feelings are friends, not enemies.
That's right.
And, being aware of your feelings, understanding what your emotional and physical reactions are, tapping into that, that's really hard for me. I prefer to be in that cognitive space. When you ask me how I feel, I will tell you what I think, instead of how I feel. And so it is, I think, something that is really key to start understanding. Am I comfortable with the space that I'm taking up? If I'm not even comfortable enough to acknowledge my own feelings, then.
Well, I think it's also being aware of, whenever you're in certain places, like, how it makes you feel. So I've recently had a couple of experiences where I appreciate that you say that I've come across as balanced and put together, all the very nice things that you said. But there are situations where I don't feel that way, and I feel like my emotions, like, swoop me up and take me someplace I don't want to go. And what I've started to do is focus on, when is that happening? Where is it coming from? So that way, when I am in those situations, I'm better prepared for this strong emotional reaction.
Well, I think you monitor those emotions, or edit those emotions and how they come out really well, because I don't know anyone that would describe you as somebody who gets swept away by emotion.
Well, and I don't mean like the way that I am able to compartmentalize, whatever you want to call it. And yes, I do edit. But internally, it just totally shifts me into this different space that I don't feel like I'm productive in. And like, I want to show up well. I want to connect with people. I want all of those things. And I find when I am up in my emotions about things, I have a harder time doing that. And like I said, for the most part, I'm pretty good. But there are certain situations where it, like, just starts to ping all of my insecurity.
I mean, I think it's okay for you just to be upset sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, like, that's space that maybe you should be taking up. It's just, it's okay to be upset sometimes. Time and a place.
Time and a place.
And I don't think that you're going to be dancing on the line of picking the wrong time and place. So once we become aware of where these emotions are coming from, or what it is that's pinging us to have these feelings, then what?
Well, I think once you understand those things, you can start to put things in place that help you focus that energy in the right area. So whether that's, taking some deep breaths and centering yourself.
I love that one. That's one I learned early in my career. And it's one that I've used with people that I work with where, we start to get upset and I'm like, I use it at home too. And the producer will tell you, I'm like, okay, we're going to take 3 deep breaths. Ready? Let's do it together.
I even remember like growing up as a child, my mom used to do that with us. Like whenever we would get so upset and we couldn't like communicate what was wrong, she would take us by the shoulder. Okay, let's take some breaths. It's going to be okay. What's going on? And so it was just like, it's getting that calmness back so that you can then communicate.
Well, yeah, you got to return oxygen to the brain so you can think. How are you going to think if there's no oxygen in there to fuel the brain? Right. So I love taking the 3 deep breaths. I've tried, there was this like article that came out, I don't know, a while back that talked about like the breath that was supposed to be more calming than like anything else. And it's like you inhale and then you inhale again to get all of the air in and then you exhale. I kept going, am I doing it wrong? Because it just like makes me more stressed out, but I didn't say that out loud. And so then I was telling my husband about it and he actually verbalized like, I feel like this makes me more stressed out. And I was like, oh, it's not just me. But I am the one that told him how to do it. So maybe I was doing it wrong. I don't know. If you know about it, like drop a note in the comments and let us know. Or a link to the article. Yeah, that is
very
deep breathing
important.
Is definitely something that I think is really helpful.
I also went through a training where they talked to us. It was like about being a presenter and how to, they were meant to be quick hit things, very interactive, but it takes a lot. Like because of the amount of energy you had to bring, you had to do certain things to get yourself ready for it. One of the things that they actually made us do in a room, it was a small group of like 5 or 6 of us. They actually had us try power.
Oh, I love power posing.
And that's not just for work. Like that is for real life.
I feel so dumb when I'm doing it. So awkward. But it is so helpful to power pose. I have absolutely done that before. It is something that I actually do when I walk into a social setting where I have to like work the room.
Yep.
And I hate doing that, by the way. People are surprised to find that out. They're like, oh my gosh, you're so outgoing. You're like so good at all this. And it's like literally the last thing I want to, you've seen me. Like I'm in the car on the way to the festival over the weekend. And I'm like, I feel really hot. I'm sweating everywhere. My stomach hurts. My head hurts. Not because I don't want to go be around all these people, but I'm starting to just get like really anxious and stressed out. What I started doing is when I would have to go work a room, I would just kind of put my shoulders back and down, raise my head up higher, and just fake it and walk through with confidence. And one of my workers, the one that was at our ceremony last year for our anniversary in New York, she said to me, oh my gosh, Jen, you are so good at this. And I just looked at her like, are you kidding me? Like, I hate this.
Yeah.
But you fake it until you make it, right? And so just putting on that posture and physically taking up the space instead of shrinking and making myself smaller and looking like I don't belong, which is what I really wanted to do. Kind of helps you.
Right. I think that goes to the importance of your posture and wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, it does convey a certain amount of confidence, your comfortability in the space that you're in your own skin. All of those things go into a physical manifestation. Whenever you do feel like you're working on this, because again, people may not even be aware of it until they, someone tells them or they themselves become aware of it.
Yeah.
Like how you just straightened up.
Sat up. I do not claim to be great at this, guys. I am working on it. It's why we're talking about it.
But I think that's a perfect example of how like you said that you've been working on this for like 5 or 6 years. Like it's a process. You're not going to reach the destination.
Yeah, no, that's apparently it's something like it's the journey, it's the climb. I don't know. There's a lot of songs about that for a reason. One last thing that I want to talk about is how you talk to yourself. That's a really important tool to use in your toolkit. And we recently did an episode on affirmations. So if you don't know about affirmations or you're kind of skeptical of them, I would challenge you to go listen to that conversation. And I say that because they have been such a powerful tool for me in managing my self-worth and my self-value and really helping to move the mark for me on where I find that kind of strength from. I just really think how you speak to yourself, it doesn't happen instantly. Remember, I was on the job hunt years ago, and I was talking to my therapist, and I was like, well, logically, I know I'm really good at what I do. I know that I'm good at my job. And here I am, like, looking at you, feeling embarrassed for saying that. But I know that I'm good at what I do or what I was doing, at least then, as I'm not working right now, but by choice. But I just was really struggling with going to an interview and feeling like I wasn't worthy of being there, even though I know how to do the job and I can do it really well. And I'm confident in that. And so he told me, like, you've got to start doing these affirmations. And I'm like, what is it that I should say? And he gave me simple affirmations. And so I would go on my walk and I would repeat these things to myself as I was like gearing myself up to be able to go to interviews. And I just remember kind of coming to tears. And then, of course, apologizing. It is often saying, like, I'm saying them, but how many times do I have to say them before they feel real? And he was like, well, you just have to keep doing it until you start to believe it. And sure enough, eventually, I did start to feel a little more comfortable with believing what I was saying. But sometimes you just have to give yourself different words to start believing than the ones that you're repeating inside your head, which are not good for you.
RuPaul says, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else? So if you cannot have that positive self-talk, how are you going to hold other people accountable to make sure that your engagements are of that positivity?
And if you're sitting here going, I can't say things like, I'm good at what I do, I am a kind person, I am generous, whatever, fill in the blanks, then, like, is it because you're afraid to take up that space?
Right.
Like, you got to start asking yourself that. So affirmations, really, really good, easy, quick way to start changing that mental self-talk.
So in the real world, you may encounter people who don't necessarily, if you are changing and on this journey, maybe they don't like the new way that you're showing up, or maybe you are now making them uncomfortable. What do you, because you've been on this journey for a while, like, have you had that experience?
Well, I just punch them. No, I'm just kidding. Don't recommend violence. I'm not a violent person. I think you have to recognize that when you have taught somebody how to treat you for so long, and then you go changing the dynamic, it's confusing. It's uncomfortable. I know my husband and I have been working on, I would say to him, I want you to not always defer to me. He would take that and I would be like, this is uncomfortable.
Like to be consulted.
What do you mean? I don't want to do that. So you have to be willing to make space for people, but you have to acknowledge that you may be on this journey, but everybody else may not be on this journey with you, and so you have to be kind of gracious about it. I think you have to prepare yourself to not be defensive, or if somebody else gets defensive, just meet them where they're at. Like, that's okay. It's okay that they're you don't have to sit there and take it, but sometimes you can de-escalate or diffuse it just by acknowledging that you're trying something new.
And I think it would be a miss for us to not say it's also not your responsibility to make people comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely not. So just because they are uncomfortable does not mean that you did something wrong. In fact, what was it, that clip from Mel Robbins that I sent you guys earlier this week or last week? It was basically like, if you want to stop being, I'm going to paraphrase this so wrong, I'm sorry, Mel Robbins, but the gist of it was, if you want to stop being at the mercy of what other people think all of the time, then you just have to say what you think or what you want And then you just have to sit with the discomfort for a few seconds. I was like, oh, honey, that discomfort's going to take a lot longer on me than it does on you. You just have to sit with it and then tell yourself, like, okay, I'm uncomfortable right now and it's okay. Right. And then eventually it passes. And, probably the other person was way less uncomfortable than you were.
Right. Very true.
Maybe not, but probably.
Maybe. You know what? That's on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we wrap this up, I do think we've talked about a lot, and I do want to just give some reminders, because I do think that as people are going through this, it's, number one, not always easy to spot when you are in these moments, like in the moment, because life happens really fast. But if you are like me and you walk away from a situation and you're constantly processing what you could have said, done, or shown up differently, you begin to see that stuff. And so know that you're not going to get it right every time, and that's okay. Like, again, this is about being on a journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be comfortable with that. Be comfortable that you are going to be uncomfortable sometimes, and that's okay. It is part of the journey.
Yeah, listen to feelings are not your enemy.
They are.
So listen to them, asking more questions about why you're feeling, where it's coming from, what's motivating it. And like, really, I think the question that I ask often is this serving me? Because if it's not serving me, then maybe I should stop. If it's serving me, like, maybe I should identify whether it's healthy or not. But if it's not serving me, like, why am I doing it? Just because it's a habit that I've fallen into, because I don't know how to do anything different, because I'm afraid of making a change. For me, none of those answers are good enough. So to me personally, that means I should probably reevaluate.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we wrap this up, we would love to hear from all of you. We would love to hear how you feel about being comfortable taking up the space that you exist in, whether this is something that you have figured out or something that you also struggle with, how it shows up for you. Like we said, we're on a journey, and so we would love tips from you. That would be great. If there's anything you're willing to share with others as well, drop it in the comments. Wherever you're listening, we absolutely would love that. You can also send us an email or text us. Where can they do that, Chris?
So you can email us at chrisjeninthemorning@gmail.com, or you can, like Jen said, voicemail text us at 940-278-8129.
You do that so well.
Thank you.
Can they get a hold of us on social?
We are on all the social platforms: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Reddit. We are so many places. Our Chris and Jen ITM. ITM stands for In the Morning.
Yeah, usually if you look up Chris and Jen in the morning, you can find us. Or if you type out Chris and Jen ITM, that's our handle.
Yep.
And please subscribe if you want to hear more of this. That really helps us to keep going. So that would be great. But until next time, be kind to one another and make it a great week.
Bye, everyone.